Welcome back to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans from the West Coast. I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, and I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn from Denver. PVH, how are we feeling today, my friend?
Well, dude, I'm clean fucking shaven and smiling pretty much from ear to ears. I think everybody has been in Buckeye Nation since Monday evening. So life is good, brother. Life is good.
You know, for the benefit of our listeners, I don't think folks knew, Paige, that you grew a mustache before the playoffs and you vowed to grow it out until either Ohio State lost or until they won the national championship. And it's not going to show up on the box score of that game on Monday night, my friend, but that mustache helped win us that damn national championship, buddy.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that is, like, how many podcasts did we do between now and then? And I, it's my own damn fault. I guess I didn't bring it up enough.
I don't think we ever mentioned it.
It came up sort of, I think, maybe in passing, but to those people that are around me and see me on a daily basis, it was abject horror. So the pain and suffering was real. Although, occasionally at the end, I was starting to get some compliments on it. But I did it for the cause. And honorable mention to Sloaner, who trumped me on championship week with the greatest. Dude, we just need to put up like a 24-hour website just so everybody can see the contrast. Yeah.
That's great, man. That's great.
For the ages. Anyways.
We are also joined by our man on the ground in Cleveland, Chad Plummer. CP, what's the word from the 216, my friend?
I mean, you guys are talking about, I was like, what actually happened Monday night? Like, what the fuck? Everything is good in the 216, man. I just still kind of like taking it all in, kind of like absorbing it, just enjoying it. Like I said, I thought it was Wednesday earlier. The text was like, pods of 10 minutes. I'm like, whoa, wait, it's Wednesday, man. It's tomorrow, dude.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, it's all good. I'm just like, it's, I'm just super stoked. I'm glad we got this monkey off our back, and I'm good to be back on here on Thursday, the week of us winning a national championship.
That's right.
Come on.
That's right, gentlemen. The Ohio State University Buckeyes are your 2024 college football national champions. Now, the Buckeyes punctuated the most impressive postseason run in college football history with a 34-23 victory over 7-seed Notre Dame in the college football playoff championship game in Atlanta on Monday night. And with that win, the Buckeyes captured their third national title since 2002 with their third different head coach. Ryan Day, who began the 2024 season with a 2-5 record against top 5 opponents, is now 7-6 against the top 5 after the Buckeyes mowed through the CFP field on their way to the program's 9th national title. Also, Day's record in the college football playoff improved greatly from the start of the season. He was 1-3 in the CFP before the season started. Now he's 5-3 overall. The senior quarterback, Will Howard, was named the game's offensive MVP on Monday night, going 17-21 for 231 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Howard completed his first 13 passes of the game. I believe that was a CFP championship game record. He also ran a season-high 16 times for 57 yards. Senior linebacker Cody Simon was named the game's defensive MVP, finishing with a team-high 8 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. It was the second time this postseason Howard and Simon were named MVPs. Howard was named the offensive MVP in the Cotton Bowl, and Simon was named the defensive MVP of the Rose Bowl. Now, the game had a couple of different chapters to it. The Irish seized an early 7-0 lead, marching 75 yards on 18 plays on their first possession, but the Buckeye defense would limit the Notre Dame offense to a grand total of 21 total yards on their next 4 possessions, and the Ohio State offense would score 31 unanswered, which included touchdowns on 4 straight possessions to take a commanding 31-7 third-quarter lead. But things got a little dicey late in this game as the Buckeyes seemed to take their foot off the gas toward the end of the third quarter, right, fellas? Missed tackles, penalties, and a fumble by Emeka Egbuka allowed the Irish to claw back into the game. The Irish went on a 16-0 run thanks to 2 Jaden Greathouse touchdown receptions to trim the Ohio State lead to 31-23 with 4:15 to play in the game. Now, after building a 31-7 lead, guys, Ryan Day seemed content to sit on the ball and run clock. Ohio State only attempted 6 passes after halftime. I didn't realize that until I read the box score. Thankfully, when it most mattered, Day and Chip Kelly got back to the aggressive play calling that carried the Buckeyes throughout this postseason run. With the Buckeyes facing a 3rd and 11 with 2:45 to play in the game, Howard hit Jeremiah Smith for a 56-yard moonshot to take Ohio State down to the Notre Dame 10-yard line. 4 plays later, Jaden Fielding would nail a 33-yard field goal with 28 seconds to play. That put the Buckeyes up by 11 and would seal the game. Smith finished the evening with 5 catches on 7 targets for 88 yards receiving and a touchdown. Emeka Egbuka caught all 6 passes thrown his way for 64 yards. Quinshon Judkins finished with 121 total yards on 13 touches and 3 touchdowns. Personally, I thought Judkins had a strong case for the offensive MVP, but they gave it to Howard. PVH, I'm going to start with you. The Buckeyes are national champions once again. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Give us a few thoughts on what you saw from the Buckeyes on Monday night.
Yeah, man. The interesting thing, I think, is that first drive, right? Like, as distressing as it, kind of was, I just remember thinking to myself, man, if they can sustain that for 60 minutes, then you deserve to win. Yeah. But I just didn't think that they could do it. I mean, that was, it almost felt like it took everything out of that offense, until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And, in hindsight, it probably did, or maybe did. And then the other sort of thought was like, I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but this team had moved on from the Michigan game, right? They weren't going to cower going down 7-0, which, every other playoff game, they came out of the gates, they were up 7-0. That answer was huge, right? Obviously in any football game, but I think for that team psychologically, it's like, okay. So, even after that first quarter or that first drive, I really wasn't that worried. Obviously it got dicey in the fourth quarter, but dude, I think that's just human nature, right? Like the human beings, they're kids, right? They're going to take the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And then the last overarching thing is I just kind of remember screaming to my, not to myself, even out loud with, sitting here watching the game is
you're an extrovert, Paige.
Do not go conservative.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And that, it worked on that last drive for the first, Howard, got 1 first down, but then you're 3rd and 11. I'm like, dude, go back to, what got you here. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I didn't expect a 50-yard bomb to Smith, but.
And don't give him a chance to fucking come back. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. And, the other thing is just, and, I think, going back, and I sent it on our text thread, like Trey picking up that blitz, right? Which, I don't think Trey
big time play.
Got enough credit for their blocking, protection.
Yeah.
All season they were great with that.
Yeah.
So
they picked up their assignments.
Yeah, absolutely. That team was, Notre Dame's. I was impressed by them, but at the end of the day, right? Like, isn't this the kind of game that we all saw coming? They're a gritty team, but man, like everything would have to go their way. Mm-hmm. And even as they were making that comeback, right? It's like, okay, you scored 2 touchdowns, you got two conversions. I don't know that the football gods are going to smile on you and let you score 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions, right? It's just too hard. The margin of error is too small, and that's what it turned out to be. So dude, great night. I was very confident going into it, but you still got to play the game, you got to win. It got a little nerve-wracking at the end, but the Buckeyes got it done, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, one real quick comment on what you said, and then I'm going to kick it over to you, CP. What struck me on that opening drive by Notre Dame, as impressive as it was how hard they had to work. for that offense, and how it was Riley Leonard. I believe he had 9 carries, and there was just no way that was sustainable. And then you look at Ohio State's drive, boom, boom, boom down the field. A bunch of different players touched the ball. It was kind of like the basketball analogy. I mean, it was like one team is shooting, step back 35-foot threes, and they're making them, and the other team is getting backdoor layups and in wide open jump shots. I mean, which is more sustainable, right, over the course of a game? And that was what struck me, even though that opening possession by Notre Dame was pretty impressive.
Well, and to add on to that, what was kind of, I don't know, confounding though, and he made the adjustment after that, but it's like you knew that was what Notre Dame was going to do, and Jim Knowles was just content to have 4 guys, right, like stack the box. It's like, well, 4 guys are going to get beat by 6 guys. And the last thing I want to say is, as the week went on, I thought more and more about it, and I was talking to some buddies from Notre Dame, and I was like, the one glaring weakness of Ohio State, the only weakness of Ohio State is our DBs. And if you try and, everyone's like, well, they got to get us in a, phone booth and make it a fist fight. I'm like, that might be the wrong approach, right? Like maybe you need to open it up and air it out. And sure enough, now granted, right, the context of the game was a little bit different, but I wonder if I'm Marcus Freeman, if I'm not second guessing, right, my game plan going into that, because they found success throwing the ball. And, had they done that and not run out of gas after that first drive, who knows how this game might go.
That's a good point. That's a good point. There was success in the second half, and you do have to wonder how focused Ohio State was in that moment. Maybe they weren't quite as focused as they were throughout the playoffs. But yeah, no, it's a good point. CP, what did you see on Monday night from our Ohio State Buckeyes that stood out to you, my friend?
I mean, so many things, but that first drive, like they alluded to, that was like I kind of felt like, okay, all right, let's go. Well, let's get that out of the way. Let's get down to business here. And like you said, they worked you talk about grinding.
Yeah.
They grind to get that 7 points. And I was like, there's just like, it's not going to sustain. You know what I mean? They can't score with us this entire for 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm like, that's fine. Let's go. And I just was like, all right, let's go. We got that out of the way. And then it just felt good. And that field goal that we made at the end of the game, I'm not a bettor anymore, but I have kind of that a little bit this season on Buckeyes that covered. And, it's funny, I was going through, if you go through like our thread of, focus now, national
our text thread, yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like reading some of this shit. But I tell you what, though, after that Michigan game, I said, you watch, we're going to win the national championship. I put a bet on that, and I was like, it was a very, very nice Monday.
It was a lucrative bet. You won a little money on that,
very
lucrative.
But you know what? Yeah, but you know what? Aside from that, I would rather have no dollars and have that trophy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I heard Doug Maurice say the Ohio State defense was the best unit of any team in the playoffs. And I think that is undeniably true. And when I think back on this title run, I will always think of it as driven by the Buckeye defense. And of course, nobody's going to remember this 10 years from now, but I thought Monday was probably the worst performance by the Ohio State defense since the regular season loss at Oregon. It started with that 18-play, 75-yard drive that, where Notre Dame was running the single wing to advance the football down the field. That ate up almost 10 minutes of the game clock. And then it ended with missed tackles, penalties, and poor coverage that allowed Notre Dame to go on a 16-0 run that made it a one-score game. Davis and Igbinosun committed 2 terrible penalties in coverage, both on 3rd and long, to give Notre Dame a fresh set of downs. There was the PI on Mitchell Evans on 3rd and 19 from the Irish 37-yard line. And then 5 plays after that, Notre Dame receiver Jaden Greathouse would score on a 34-yard catch and run thanks to 2 missed tackles, one by Jermaine Matthews and one by Caleb Downs. I mean, Downs has been, he's been money in the bank back there. So very uncharacteristic missed tackles there on that play. And then the second Igbinosun penalty was a defensive holding on 3rd and 9 at the start of the 4th quarter. Now, that was on the drive that ultimately ended in the missed field goal by Notre Dame. Jordan Hancock was also flagged for a defensive holding on that drive. And then with 5:30 left in the game, Cody Simon, who was the defensive MVP, he misses an open field tackle on Mitchell Evans that allowed Evans to rumble 33 yards down to the Ohio State 31-yard line. 3 plays later on 3rd and 9, Jordan Hancock gets torched by Greathouse for a 30-yard touchdown catch. Hancock was also flagged for a pass interference penalty on that play. Notre Dame's 23 points were the second most allowed by the Buckeye defense since the October 12th loss to Oregon. And Monday was only the 3rd time this season that an opponent eclipsed 20 points against the Silver Bullets. But in between Notre Dame's opening scoring drive and then that 16-0 second half run, I thought the defense was pretty damn good. I mean, they held Notre Dame to 18 yards of total offense in the second quarter, and that allowed the Buckeyes to take that commanding 21-7 lead into the half. And as I thought that they would, the Buckeyes, the defense was great against Notre Dame's vaunted rushing attack. They only allowed 2 yards per carry in the run game to Notre Dame. It's just extremely difficult to be at your best 4 straight games against opponents as good as the teams the Buckeyes face in these playoffs. So look, the Silver Bullets weren't at their best in this game, but they were good enough when it mattered.
They were good enough.
Yeah, good enough when it mattered. PVH, let me kick this back to you. Any other observations from Monday night?
Well, I mean, I agree with you, and I guess I kind of feel like you're being hard on the defense. And like Hancock, dude, he didn't get torched. I mean, he was right on the guy. I mean, sometimes guys make plays too.
Yeah.
The Iggy penalties were.
Well, he also, he also got flagged for pass interference on the play. He was beat.
I understand.
Yeah,
I get it. But he was right there. I mean, and I think that's sort of been a theme. But anyways, I don't want to focus on that. The other thing is, I mean, come on, man. Like, we don't talk about how fucking great Will Howard was in that game, in that 4-game run.
He was awesome.
Oh, dude.
He was awesome.
On.
I mean, 8 touchdowns,
outrageous.
1 INT, and that was our big concern, right? Getting up off the mat. Like 2 people, well, not really getting off the mat. Brian Day had to get off the mat. So did Chip Kelly. But, the other thing I think our big concern was, does Will Howard have 4 games in
Totally.
him? Fuck yeah, that guy had 4
Hell
games
yeah, he
in
did.
him.
Yeah.
But you said it. Right? He started 8 for 8. I mean, that toss to Smith at the end. I mean, dude, God, 1 year. I'm almost sad we only got 1 year with that
Totally,
guy.
man.
And I'm so happy for him. Another guy, man. Hopefully, he made himself a lot of money in these last 6 weeks, and he was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. No, I went back and listened to our Michigan postgame pod that we did, PVH, and you're right.
Yeah.
Like we were both really concerned and very doubtful that Will Howard could eliminate the mistakes for 4 straight games. After that Michigan game, right? He had the 2 devastating turnovers in that, and he had 2 against Penn State. So you're right. I was right there with you. I didn't think he had it in him, and man, he proved both of us wrong. He was phenomenal. CP, what else did you see on Monday night that stood out to you?
See, one of the funniest things ever that I was going back to those texts I said in our thread is like the fact that you know how you remember how fired he was up Paige for 48 hours there after the Michigan game. He's like, I'm like, we're winning the national championship. There is no chance in hell that Ohio State's going to run through number 2, number 1.
Well, I mean, but Ohio State, they earned the doubt, right? That was a terrible loss. It was a terrible loss. I mean, I
agree with you, Ben. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing.
They went away from the game plan and just like who gives, we're not run it up your gut, we can, but no, you just ball out and do what we did, Chip. We don't what are you doing playing those call plays? They just play calling was terrible. We got out of our element.
Yep.
It is what it is, but I tell you what, I think that was a kick in the head of hey, you know what? This is real. We all came back here for a reason, and it certainly wasn't to lose to Michigan and then lose in the playoff.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that sparked that and Jesus in the locker room got this win.
We touched on it briefly in the last pod, but there was the players only meeting the Tuesday after the Michigan loss that Jack Sawyer referenced in his Players Tribune piece. It was several other national writers wrote about it, but that was an inflection point. That was a turning point. I heard Jeremy Birmingham say this morning that the players went in to that meeting doubting whether or not Ryan Day was the right man to lead the program. And they left that meeting. They left that meeting convinced that he was the right man to lead that program. And then we saw what ensued the month after that, right? This wonderful run that Ohio State went on. So what a turnaround. I actually think, because I have a good work friend, I've mentioned him, his name's Mike. We actually went to the playoff semifinal together. And Mike has a completely different view. He's been in leadership roles his entire career. He understands how hard it is to lead an organization. And he's been much more patient with Ryan Day than me. And the nice thing is that I think we can both say, I told you so, because those of us that were doubting him knew that we were capable of better as a team. And we were proven right by this run. And those of, like my friend Mike, who were preaching patience, can also say, see, look, I told you so. You just need to be a little bit more patient. So that's another wonderful thing about this outcome that, fans can thump their chests about. One other thing I wanted to touch on real quick. I said in our preview pod last week that I thought the Ohio State rushing attack would be more of a factor in this game than most people were expecting. The Notre Dame rush defense had shown some vulnerability against quality offenses this season, guys. They were 41st nationally, I think, against the run coming into this game. Now, I thought it would be Trey Henderson who would lead the way rushing the ball in this game, but it turned out it was Quinshon Judkins. The Buckeyes finished with 214 rushing yards on 41 carries. Judkins finished with 100 yards of that total on 11 carries. That included that 70-yard run to start the third quarter. PVH, you and I talked about offensive balance as a key to winning this game, and that's, it was their success on the ground against the Irish that allowed them to have offensive balance. The Buckeyes finished with 445 yards of total offense, 214 on the ground, and 231 through the air. Can't really ask for much better balance than that in a national championship game, I don't think, right?
No, fantastic.
I want to circle back because we started to touch on. I want to circle back on Ryan Day, though. And Paige, I want to start with you. Now, this postseason run, which I have been very transparent about, I didn't think he could pull off, completely exonerates him for 4 straight losses to Michigan and no Big Ten title since 2019. Can we agree on that? Are you in agreement there, PVH, with that statement?
Yeah, dude, 100%. And I was thinking about this before, the pod. I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter, but is it any worse than losing to Iowa anymore? Because that's the new world that we live in with college football, And then I was also thinking about, so in this new world, how are things going to shake out? Like, I don't know that it necessarily has to be the last game of the season anymore, right? Because the complete structure and landscape of college football has changed. And the other thing about it, going back to, the lunatic fringe and all that, multiple things can be true at the same time, right? Like, it wasn't good enough. The season wasn't good enough. It's not an indictment on Ryan Day as a person and his family. Like, forget that stuff. But, he's been knocking at the door. He's got all the toys, right? It's not unrealistic to expect them to punch through. And, I don't think we think they should do it every single year. But I think, he needed it, right? And he's, to sort of answer your question, he's completely exonerated.
Yeah.
And, the other thing, I talked a lot about it after the Michigan game, and, just his face when that shit went down with Jack Sawyer and, like, his post-press conference, like, dude, you've lost the focus.
This is after the Michigan loss that you're referring to, right?
Yeah, after the Michigan loss, right? Yeah, you are standing way too close to the sun, and you have to find the joy and the fun and maybe the expectations going into this year, right? Because we knew how great this team would be. So whatever did happen in that meeting, he found that again. And it was clear, it was obvious. It was just like, dude, open up that Ferrari, right? And open up, just everything that you do, because you are the leader of these kids and they look at you and how you act and your demeanor and that stuff. And he flipped the switch, then it was apparent and obvious. It was fucking amazing to watch.
Amen. Amen. CP, would you agree, right? That this run exonerates him?
I would.
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. I've always been a supporter of Day, and when he brought in Chip Kelly, I was like, great. This, obviously, you can't like be thrilled about some of the, decisions made. Like, let's just try to run up their throat against Michigan. Come on, man. We should have beat them by like 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We didn't. But you know what? And you can say what you will, but maybe that's what they needed, man. Maybe that's what these kids needed. But at the end of the day, yeah, Ryan Day said. I mean, there's not many programs, if any, in the country that wouldn't want to have Ryan. I can tell you what, Alabama would much rather have Ryan Day, their coach, than that dude from Washington. I can tell you that.
Then DeBoer, yeah, you could be right about that. PVH, before the game on Monday, you and I had a very brief back and forth on our text thread about whether we could consider this season a success if Ohio State were to lose to Notre Dame. Let me just say I am so happy that we don't have to debate that this offseason. And Ryan Day, his staff, and those players pulled off the greatest postseason run in college football history, and he completely annihilated the narrative that he can't win matchup games. Day was 5-1 this season against top 5 opponents, and he just beat 3 in a row, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame, to win the national title. Bobby Carpenter said on the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday, "Nothing cools down a hot seat like a Gatorade bath." I love that quote. And I think it's fair to say Day probably earned himself another half dozen cracks at beating Michigan, right? I've always wrestled with the notion that beating Michigan and winning a national championship are actually 2 completely different paths. I mean, it's not like one is chess and the other's checkers. I mean, whether it's Michigan or Texas, it's still fucking football. They still play the game with an oblong leather ball. You still have to get 10 yards for a first down, whether it's Michigan or it's Notre Dame. A touchdown is worth as many points against Michigan as it is against, Alabama. And the other thing is, with this new format, it's pretty likely Ohio State is going to face Michigan in the playoffs one day. Could be as soon as next season. And then these 2 seemingly divergent paths merge back into one, like it was for 100 years before the 12-team playoff was born. So Michigan is the next dragon for Ryan Day to slay, and I believe he can do it now. I mean, if he has it in him to beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame within the span of a month, it's well within his capabilities to beat Michigan. And now he can attack that problem with much greater confidence and with far less pressure than he's had on him in the last couple of months. So I really think that he gained something. Certainly he gained something, a national title, but psychologically, he got a huge monkey off his back, and now he can attack this Michigan problem with the full weight of the program behind him and with far less pressure.
It will be less red-faced. Michigan.
Fellas, anything else you'd like to say about the national championship, about Monday night, about Ryan Day, before we have a quick peek at next season?
I mean, dude, we could go on for hours because, all those games, and I think you're right. I think he definitely did, maybe get the monkey off his back. And I think, I do think like the Lou Holtz comment and the born on third base comment, kind of stuck with him. And candidly, at some level, it was probably warranted. To CP's point, like when that thing happened on the 50-yard line, right? And Sawyer, made that stand. I don't think it dawned on him at that moment, but at some point it did, right? And it just, it's like, dude, just go coach these guys, right? And like they got your back.
Build up that fire right there, right?
Yeah,
dude, and somebody I had heard, and I don't know if this is true, but it was actually, if you've heard differently, let me know, that it was actually Caleb Downs that called the meeting.
I did hear that. Hear that. Yeah.
And it might have been as simple as, dudes, I didn't come up here from fucking Alabama for this. So let's get in the room and figure this out.
Right.
Exactly.
So, so who knows? I mean, it's actually really fascinating to me and an interesting sort of subplot to the whole thing. But, and again, I go back, dude, Jen Reddington, she's like, it's no fun not to like Ryan Day, right? Yeah. And so we can put that narrative to bed forever. I mean, in my book, you get a 5-year mulligan. And what I was debating with you, Zach, is like, it does take a little bit of luck to win a national championship. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'm saying. Like, I was very confident that they would win, but, stuff happens, and there was a chance that they would lose that game. And, under old formats, right, going from the BCS to the 14 playoff, Urban Meyer doesn't get in that game. Under the old format.
Or Ryan Day last year.
For this one.
Yeah. If it were last year, Ryan Day doesn't get in. I'm just glad we don't have to debate it, because I definitely would have taken the other side of the argument, and we would have been arguing about it all off season. But the reality is they won the national championship. I mentioned this over text today. The next evolution for this program, though, is to continue to reach their ceiling through the act of excelling and not having to reach these devastating lows. Of course, you're going to have adversity throughout a season, of course. But I mean, they hit two valleys in this during this season that they were very lucky to pull up out of, and maybe as Day develops as a coach and as this program evolves, they can find ways to reach their ceiling without hitting those lows. Go ahead, CP.
Yeah. There is a couple people that I do want to, like, at least one that I was like a big cheerleader for, and who I feel like had a just unbelievable Ohio State career. And talk about diversity, like adversity. That was Lathan Ransom. Dude, that kid, I want to give that kid props. You talk about a Buckeye that has gone through adversity.
That's right.
This program, and he ended up becoming a leader, and like he balled out this year, man.
Paige, is there a player that you want to shout out similar to what CP just did with Lathan Ransom?
I want to shout out to myself for growing a mustache for that 4-game run.
Yeah, you know what, dude? I'm going to give him a shout out on that too. That's a safety right there.
For me, it's
a safety, and Paige is like, but.
Well, Paige, if you don't have anyone, for me, it's Emeka Egbuka. I've been on the Emeka Egbuka. I've been driving the bus for Emeka Egbuka since his freshman year, and it was a really touching moment after the game. You could see he was in tears hugging Ryan Day. He's a player that's been through a lot. It's injured, banged up each of the last 2 years. Really wasn't able to be his true self last season because of injury. And look at what the imprint that he's left on that young receiver room, teaching those young kids, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, how to be professionals. And of course, highly productive receiver that I believe he's the career leader now at Ohio State in reception. So huge shout out for me to Emeka Egbuka, one of my all-time favorite Buckeyes. All right, fellas, I don't think it's too soon to have a quick peek at next season, is it? Joel Klatt released his way too early top 10 for 2025. He has the Buckeyes at number 3. Now, we don't have time today to do a full roster breakdown for next season. There will be plenty of time to do that before August 30th. But there are a few interesting developments right now that we should address quickly before I let you guys go. First, it's being reported that Oklahoma is trying to hire Jim Knowles away from the Buckeyes to be their defensive coordinator. Now, I can't say I'd understand Knowles' interest in Oklahoma unless there's significantly more money. From a football standpoint, it's clearly a step down. It's also been reported that both Texas and Oregon have been running hard at Carnell Tate, and no doubt there are other players on this Ohio State roster that other programs are going to try to poach. So Ryan Day and the NIL collectives have their work cut out for them in trying to retain talent for the 2025 season. Current OSU players have until this Saturday to enter the transfer portal. Cornerback Calvin Simpson-Hunt entered the portal earlier this week, and it was just announced today that he's headed to Baylor. And finally, Quinshon Judkins, Sonny Styles, and Davison Igbinosun all have NFL decisions to make. They have until Friday, tomorrow, to declare. PBH, I want to start with you. What does your gut tell you about Jim Knowles, Tate, and then those 3 draft-eligible starters, Judkins, Styles, and Igbinosun? Which way do you think that goes?
I could actually see Tate going. I could see it.
Wow.
Oof,
that would be tough.
He's going to be a number 2. Let's just be honest, because number 1, and if I'm the Ohio State NIL collective, how much of that is going to keep Smith?
Yeah.
Right? Somebody tweeted it. I don't know who it was, but it's actually a good point. Like, what are the offers coming from that guy?
So what does your gut, PBH, tell you about? So you think it is possible that Tate goes? Are you calling that? You think he's going to go to Oregon or to Texas?
Dude, fuck, dude. You know what? None of us know. None of us knows what's going on with the dark money world of the NIL. But would it surprise me if he left?
Okay.
No. Right?
It fucking surprised me.
What?
It would surprise the shit out of me if a player of his caliber left Ohio State and Brian Hartline from a national championship. I would be stunned if that happened. I'm not saying it won't, but man, we're in this new world.
Dude, money talks, dude. What if somebody offers him $6 million?
Yeah, well, yeah.
What if Phil Knight offers him a shoe? You don't know what's going on out there, dude. So
Nike's stock is falling quicker than fucking my God.
Whatever. Larry Ellison's 32nd wife offers him $42 million to come live in Pack Heights. Dude, it's possible, and he plays for USF. It could happen. You never know.
Okay.
Jim Knowles,
of course it could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems weird to me. And
he's from Oakland.
Yeah, I don't think so. I forget the third one, though.
So Judkins, Styles, and Igbinosun, they have NFL decisions to make.
Depends. Dude, go get paid. I'm all for go get paid. If you're going to get a good draft grade, go get the money. Dude, you're a fucking running back coming back. Unless you're going to be a 4th or 5th round pick and we're going to pay you to stay, I'm always for, players, especially at that position, go get the money while you can. The fourth one I will say that's interesting in the portal is 2 offensive linemen from Notre Dame are in the portal.
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
Yeah, that's interesting. But what about, real quick though, PVH, what about Styles and Igbinosun? Do you think they come back? Do you think they stay? What do you think?
Dude, I think the better question is, do we want Igbinosun back? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Hamburglar, Mike Corcoran says it's about his all his sport. I mean, dude, if the money's not there for him, then come back. Yeah, if the money's there, go get the money.
Yeah,
and dude, it's the NFL. It's like, this is generational money. I always you've done the job. They all have earned to go do whatever the fuck they want.
Okay. CP, give us your take. Yep. Knowles, Tate, Judkins, Styles, Igbinosun. How do you think that all those situations are going to shake out?
Propaganda on Knowles. That's all bullshit. He's not going to go back to Oklahoma. And, they're like just flailing in the wind.
Is that his agent just trying to get him more money, probably?
100%. But he just signed an extension, man. Yeah. A big time, like they're getting. And you know what? And Bjork will pay him, but he's dialed in, dude. He's got these players, the younger players that he's got coming. Like he's not going anywhere.
Okay, so you think Knowles stays? All right.
100%. And you hear it right now. Well, Tate, first of all, is not going anywhere, dude. He's one of the biggest Ryan Day fans and Heartline on the planet, and I don't care if they give him I would seriously I would bet my left arm that he would not go off this team next year, especially with Julian saying at quarterback. Oregon's got a quarterback coming in who's unproven. Come on, no way. And then Keyshawn, you heard it here. He's coming back, dude.
You think Judkins comes back?
Okay. 100% he's come back because he is he's not going to be, a high first rounder. And if they come back and he can make, you know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah.
And then you just improve your draft stock. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Sonny Styles needs one more year at linebacker.
I agree.
He's not leaving.
Yeah. And Igbinosun, what do you think?
Well, I mean, Paige said. I mean, the Duke Duke's made some plays, but he's a little handsy,
aka the hamburger.
Yeah, dude, he's handsy.
That's right.
I'll flip a coin on that. Do I think he will? I mean, they watch his film, dude. All the tape, how many flags he's gotten. I don't know,
16.
Dude.
He's the most penalized defensive player in the country. Now, I could be wrong, but I think Ohio State ponies up the cash to keep Knowles, right? I think that's, as I mentioned, I think his agent is just trying to get more money. Now that Ohio State's won a national title and was a defensive-driven title. Tate, I think he ends up staying. They find a way to keep him. And then I think Judkins is likely gone, but then again, he plays a position that's been devalued by the NFL. And it might be tempting for him to stay, as you've pointed out, CP, for another NIL paycheck and the chance to also to be the bell cow, because he had to share carries with Trey, behind what I think is going to be an improved offensive line with the additions of Ethan Onyanwa and Philip Daniels at tackle. We already talked about how good the interior of the offensive line is going to be next year, and then they've added 2 starting tackles in the portal. I think Styles stays. I agree with you, CP. He only has 1 year of experience at linebacker under his belt. I think he can significantly improve his draft stock with another season, and there should be a nice NIL payday for him as one of the leaders of the defense. I would bet a hefty sum that Styles is one of the captains next year. And I'm indifferent on Igbinosun, but I'm leaning toward him wanting him to go, I should say. I mean, I love the way he plays the run, but he's the most penalized defensive player in the country. He has 16 penalties last season. I think I'd rather see what Aaron Scott, Bryce West, and or Devin Sanchez, who they say, Devin Sanchez, they're saying he's the Jeremiah Smith equivalent at cornerback, that he's that talented.
Right, he's a Caleb Downs coming in.
Yeah, he's a really special talent, they're saying. But I tend to think Igbinosun comes back to show NFL GMs that he can play the position without, being the second coming of, what do you guys call him, the Hamburglar?
The Hamburglar, a.k.a. the Hamburglar.
Okay, guys, listen, one last thing before I let you go. The Buckeyes' 2025 regular season schedule opens with what might very well be a number 1 versus number 2 clash in the Horseshoe with Texas on Paige's birthday, August 30th. That's against the Longhorns. Grambling and Ohio University round out the non-conference schedule. Ohio State also has home dates with Minnesota, Penn State, UCLA, and Rutgers, and they'll travel to Washington, Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue, and Michigan. Right off the bat, guys, I see 3 likely top 5 matchups in Texas, Penn State, and Michigan, and Ohio State will get to host 2 of those games in the Horseshoe. PVH, I'm going to kick this to you. Any early thoughts on the 2025 schedule?
I was more curious, not so much because I haven't looked at the schedule. Is like, if you were going to place your chips, are you 100% that Julian Sain is our quarterback? I mean, I hate to hijack your question.
100.
Really? We're not going to look at somebody in the portal and
Tavian?
Sinclair's not good
enough? No. God, no. Tavian's, that kid's going to be a beast, dude. He'll be like a
Tavian St. Clair.
Top 5 pick. Yeah, he'll be a top 5 pick.
I was just wondering if he's good enough to actually compete for that job. Anyways, I digress. Dude, I mean, I think we should all maybe be in the shoe for the Texas game. That's amazing. I love traveling. Washington would be an amazing place.
Seattle's a great town. Yeah, it's a great venue.
Yeah.
Hey,
dude, and we're playing with house money, baby. That's the best part. That's the best part, right?
Yeah.
Is that the same weekend that we went to that Oregon game, dude?
Might be.
Oh, I don't know that. I'll be fucking wishing you an unhappy birthday from afar. Then.
CP, any thoughts on the schedule? I can read through it again if you'd like.
No, not at all, man. Like I we got to play like tough road schedule next year. I
agree.
I mean, yeah. So it's crazy. I love it that we're opening up with like Texas.
I love that.
We got a tough schedule, but like I just want to just be a sponge for like 2 months and soak it in and listen to all like the whole, you know what I mean? Just enjoy it. And then I can't wait to get back on here with you guys and a few months. It's sad that it's over, but what a fucking year, man. It's
been a great year. And a lot to look forward to. I agree with you, CP, that it's a really challenging road schedule. Washington and Wisconsin are always tough places to win, even when those teams aren't that good. The Buckeyes also have to travel to Champaign against what's going to be a very tough Illinois team coached by Brett Bielema. Yeah. That won't be a picnic. By the way, Ohio State travels to Illinois and Wisconsin in consecutive weeks. Then they have an off week. Then they play Penn State at home. And that's the part of the schedule that stands out to me is pretty daunting.
Do we have Nebraska on the road?
We do not play Nebraska next year. All right, fellas, well, listen, that was a fine effort for a Thursday evening after an Ohio State National Championship clinching win. Why don't we end things there for our listeners? After the transfer portal dust settles and all the NFL decisions are in, look for another pod from the 3 of us in the coming weeks to break down the 2025 roster. Until then, thanks so much for listening, and go Bucks. You've been listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. Follow us on X at @South_stands.